Will you pray with me for a moment? Holy One, help us to be still and to know that you are God and that you are here present among us across time and distance. Settle in us all that is unsettled, if even just for these moments, so that we might truly open ourselves up, our minds, our lives, our hearts, to the words that you have for each of us today. Amen. Sweaty, smelly, dirt and paint-covered faces. Buds asleep on the T or the metro. Lakota-inspired tattoos. Sidewalk chalk-caked hands. Clothes that can literally stand up in the corner on their own after a few rounds with roof tar or cement or sticky things in a hot kitchen. Smiles that belie the fact that someone learned new skills today that they never knew they wanted to learn in the first place. Exhausted bodies and minds, but full hearts, sharing deep faith and questions and ahas in reflection circles. One of the greatest blessings of my ministry has been to travel with people of all ages, both within the United States and beyond, and experience them sharing generously of their treasures, time, and talents, some of which they didn't even know they had, in the service of God and others. In his letter, Paul writes to the church at Philippi, pointing to the fact that the world is full of situations that are challenging, if not downright evil, and that lead to division. And it is full of people who choose the crooked path that brings about that evil and division. And in response, Paul invites these faithful ones to live united with one another, to notice their interdependence. And he invites them to share their gifts and Christ's life-giving message as hopeful, albeit imperfect, examples of what it is like to live as a disciple of Christ and to shine as light into the dark and difficult places of the world. I have been blessed to see our folks come together and shine their lights into the world. I have watched as church family members have listened so deeply and intently to people who were so different from them on the surface, that those being listened to were given space to share their stories, the truth of their lives. I have watched the smiles and tears and high fives of our young people as a person on a walker was able to safely enter and exit their home for the first time because of the new handicap ramp they spent the week building with their own hands. I've watched them literally fall asleep standing up because it's hot in the city in July and August, and they have poured all their energy into making sure that people had meals or safe places to stay, or that kids felt loved as they were piggybacked around time and time again. And I have watched the light shine out from the people we have served who have offered their gifts in service to us in return. They have shared about their work as advocates for changing systems that are broken, because they have seen and lived the worst, and they want to do better by their kids or grandkids. They have shared music and advice that has touched us at a soul level. Some have shared sidewalk chalk in the middle of the city for the world to come to draw and write and bring joy. And others have heard our youth into the telling of their own stories, which have led to breakthroughs, like needs for our young people's own mental health or callings to vocations they didn't even know were in the cards. And when we don't have the time or the capability to do these things on our own, to go somewhere to feed and to learn from and serve alongside those whose lives are vastly different than ours, we support others who do. Organizations, both near and far, who are doing the work of both meeting immediate needs on the ground and working towards systemic change and justice. We support them with our church and society outreach budget, with personal gifts that lift up the change we are passionate about seeing come to the world, with hands-on projects, by shopping through our Serve ministry that helps artisans around the world that we may never meet or know to provide basic necessities, to provide lives for their families. We offer our gifts to the church so we can share God's message of love with our children who are empowered to serve others through children's messages and church school lessons and random acts of kindness projects. And we give of ourselves and our resources so we can keep our building up to snuff and our ministries alive so people can come and find a place of welcome, whether in person or now online, And so groups like AA can meet and help lead people on the path to renewed health with God's power and guidance. And we find ways to shine our lights into our own communities, being there for others with listening ears, with prayers, through our daily work, using the gifts that have been planted within us. Paul's prayer for the people in Philippi is that they will receive the blessings that come from giving, that God would take care of their needs with the wonderful blessings that come from Jesus Christ. And I don't think Paul was talking about things miraculously appearing from the sky or giving so that people might get something better in return. But there are some byproducts of putting oneself out there and offering gifts. And looking back at my own experiences and my experiences with groups, I realized that even the tough parts, the parts where I have been rightfully set straight, called out as Pollyanna-ish, or challenged to think beyond the immediate needs to the deeper change that is needed and how we are called to contribute to that change. Those moments have been moments of blessing, pushing me toward reflection on faith and intention and call, pushing me to consider if what I am offering of my time, talents, or treasure to the church or organizations about which I am passionate or to my community is enough. The parts full of hugs and shared stories and thank yous and parking lot dance parties, those are a blessing too. Seeing pure joy, that gift of the Spirit, realizing all that has been opened up and learned on so many different fronts, calling out gifts, building relationships and community centered on Jesus' example and message and on God's presence. Our faith is to be lived. As Paul wrote this letter, writing from a jail cell and oozing joy and gratitude for this young church in Philippi, he was writing about the fact that our lives are the mission, a mission to live the good news that is planted deep in our hearts and to share it with others. We can go far away to share it, but we don't have to go anywhere. We can share that message inside our own homes or just outside our front doors. Paul was writing about the fact that our faith is both personal and communal. Only we know where we are individually with God, and it is right and good that we find a community that helps make God bigger, that illuminates the way that God is at work in the world, that supports one another. Even while Paul writes a good game about knowing how to get by on his own, relying on Christ's strength to get him through, he also offers gratitude for the concern of the Philippian community toward him and mentions the gift of support they offered. Looking at the Christian life lived in community, we are reminded that when you have enough time, enough talent, enough treasure, it is a blessing when you are able to offer some of that up to the combined communal work that can be done through Christ's strength and with Christ's example and guidance. And when you don't have enough, there is a community there to help lift you up with prayers and service and treasure at times as well. It is deeply faithful to both ask for help and to offer gifts as we strive to live our faith among one another and out in the world. There is much to learn from one another and from circumstances and stories and from following the example of those we see as deeply faithful mentors and the way they shine their light into the world on this mission we call life. So as we enter into this week, I leave you with Paul's words. Try to shine as lights among the people of this world as you hold firmly to the message that gives life. And as we consider the ways that God calls us to use our gifts of time, talent, and treasure in service, Paul and I say this: I want you to receive the blessings that come from giving. I pray that God will take care of all your needs with the wonderful blessings that come from Jesus Christ. Amen.